Rob Gillender, again with the Real Football Show. Noah Gillender is my guest right before he heads off to Spain. We're going to talk a little bit about the Premier League, which is just starting here in not quite 2 weeks actually, so it's right around the corner. For those who don't know, in England, the bottom three teams get relegated. The top three teams from the league below get moved up. This year you had Burnley and Sheffield United, who had the automatic qualifying spots, and then Luton Town, who I had never heard of, did the third 2-6 teams to a playoff. They moved up. I believe this is Bournemouth for the longest time has been the smallest team, and the smallest team from the size of their stadium. Luton Town has got that beat. If you haven't seen it, you can walk into the stadium and look into the houses next door as you're walking into the stadium. They've had to do, I think it's $10 million in upgrades to their stadium just to meet the standards, and even that, then I just read that one, they're not going to be ready, so they're having to put off their home opener. Two, they got a dispensation from the Premier League. Apparently, and I didn't know this, Premier League pitches, which are grass, have to have heating underneath it, because as cold as it is up there, it keeps the ground from getting too hard, and also helps with the amount of snow they get to keep that snow to melt. They got a special dispensation to not have to do that, so they're going to be the only team that doesn't have heating under their pitch. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure every pundit is going to have them getting relegated at the end of the season. I'd love to say I'm going to predict that something different, but I think it'd be a great story. I mean, I love that. I have my team that Man City, that I like to follow, but I love those stories, like when Leicester City a few years ago, won the title and has now been relegated out of the Premier League. So, we'll kind of stick to the big things. There's been a lot of transition. Again, I follow Man City more than others. We've lost Gundogan, our captain, to Barcelona. I think it was less about money and more at his age. He had pretty much 2 guaranteed years with Barcelona, and also probably much better look at playing, consistent playing time. Then you also have Mahrez, who just left for Saudi Arabia. I can't remember the exact amount.
I think it was like
36 million. So not an insignificant amount of money. There's still a few players, Bernardo Silva, Laporte, that may be heading out. We signed the one player from Chelsea because Chelsea had a roster for 2 teams, and they had to clear out some of that. So Pulisic has gone to Italy, and I think that's
2-3 players from the Saudi Arabia from them.
a couple. Whether one goalie went to
Another player went to AC Milan, lost his cheek, went to AC Milan with Pulisic.
Right, and then of course, City has brought over. Pronounce his name for me.
Kovic.
Yeah. So.
Kovic.
And then they may be getting another Croatian player from Bundesliga.
Hope you likes it.
Yeah, so
Watch them play live.
We'll see. Yeah, that was their strong team.
They got battered that game. It was like 6-1, 5-1.
Schalke, yeah, that was not pretty. But he's 21 years old, and City likes to have draw a line in the sand for the money. But I think we're down to the difference between $5 and $10 million, which frankly the City is not a big deal. So I think you'll see that get done. So now that Bournemouth, which did survive a relegation last year, has another tiny little team to compete against in Luton Town.
Well, the Vitality Stadium, which called, they just over the mark, but Luton Town's under the mark.
Yes.
So it will be interesting to see their in games on television.
I'm great. I may watch the Luton Town games, just out of curiosity to the stadium once they get it open, because I know that the last picture said they were putting turf down, I guess, after whatever other upgrades they had to do, and it's going to be interesting to see. So when you look at, I guess, the underperforming big teams from last year, Chelsea, Tottenham, probably not Man United. They actually probably they pulled out okay season at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But Liverpool, you know,
Oh yeah, and their standards, it was probably a good season for them.
I mean, Chelsea was in the bottom. I mean, you know, they spent a whole lot of money.
Chelsea's going to be an interesting team this season. It'll be very interesting to watch. I could see him getting a top 4 or challenging the title, or I could see him getting like a 7th as well at the same time.
Well, it's, you know, they hired a new coach who hopefully is, you know, he's got a pedigree, but, you know, one way or the other. They're trimming their roster because to some degree it's, you know, sometimes when you have the money that their owner does, you forget, you know, if you have 3 goalies, you really don't need a 4th, per se. And that isn't really where they spend it, but like, you know, it was like they were collecting midfielders. And then Pulisic is upset, rightfully, that he's not getting to play, and in most statistical things, he was as productive as any of their other midfielders, so why is he not getting to play another one?
Havertz, Mount's left as well.
Yeah.
Also, it'd be interesting. Mount went to United and Havertz went to Arsenal, so.
Yeah, and Arsenal, who hasn't been, you know, has been struggling, and then had, you know, kind of out of the blue second place season last year, which, you know, if you're looking at the negative, is they were in first place for more of the season than Man City was. Unfortunately, they weren't there at the end of the season when it matters. But I don't think anyone predicted Arsenal being second last season, so I think when you look at it from that perspective, and they've upgraded their roster in a pretty significant way by bringing Havertz and others into their roster. So you would, you know, do they get second again? I don't know. But I think they're in the conversation with maybe 5 other teams of potential first place. I think them, so you have Arsenal and Manchester City, of course, who's won 3 years in a row. You have to include them in that. Although it's going to be interesting as a Man City fan, what does our final roster look like when this window closes? Do we lose? You know, if we lost Bernardo Silva at this point.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think something you can't do is just doubt Pep. As much as like you see it happening, I don't think we can really just doubt Pep. So
He's
definitely see how it'll be, but I think City will. I don't think City will win it this year. I think City will get around third. Personally, I think if I'm guessing, I think Arsenal or United will win it this season.
I'll say United hasn't finished above City in 10 years.
I'd see Arsenal or United winning it, and I could see Chelsea. I think Chelsea's the biggest wild card of the Big 6 this season, in my opinion. I think Chelsea could have a really good season, or they could have a bad season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard.
Chelsea's really a hard one for me.
With the season they had last year, Liverpool was down in that area, but they righted the ship and got back up to kind of where they
Best way
wanted
you
to
always
be.
forget Liverpool. I think the top 4 or top 5 will be very contentious this year. And also don't forget about Newcastle. Newcastle,
Well,
they're in the Champions
last year
League.
this time, I told you right before you headed to Spain that and then to Germany was that Newcastle is going to be the one breaking into that Big 6.
I don't know how Tottenham's a Big 6 team. Personally, I think they need to be replaced with Newcastle.
I think Newcastle's officially taken their spot.
I think they've all, I mean, I don't know how a Big 6 team can be something a team that don't win trophies, but they're still there somehow.
They're considered Big 6 because they've consistently been in the Big 6, you know, the top 6 ranking wise. But the other side of it is you're not looking at, you know, they haven't won anything. You know, you look at trophies over the last 10 years.
They won the Tigers Cup in Singapore.
Yeah, and City has the most. I think Man United is second, but they're at 8 titles in the last 10 years. I think I think it's like 1911.
Chelsea's definitely there. Chelsea.
But actual titles that mean something. And for Tottenham, it's a big goose egg.
Chelsea
has
have FA Cup and like.
Now saying that Newcastle doesn't have any either in that time period, but Newcastle has a new owner with more money than anybody else in the Premier League. Unlike Chelsea, whose owner was spending money like it was like a junk sailor.
I like the way Newcastle used their money. They're not going after any star players, but they're getting. You see what's called. They just got AC Milan center mid, one of their best players. He's only 21 years of age as well, so it's going to be interesting. I'm not sure if he likes Newcastle. You've watched it, if you've I'm not sure if anyone's watched his press reveal, but it'll be interesting to see how he copes with the.
But no one made him sign there, so if he signed
he went to, he said it'd be financially better if he went for AC Milan, just how much he loves AC Milan. So they got like 8 players for his set from his 70 mil.
Right. Yeah. So
2 of them were Chelsea players. So.
Yeah, but we've talked about this with Newcastle's coach when he was at Bournemouth. Eddie Howe, we loved him there. I think he was unfairly treated by the English press.
Oh yeah. I hate English press.
And because
English tax.
Well, he was taken until Luton Town this year, the team that barely had a stadium big enough to be in the Premier League, which means that the money and everything else wasn't there, and he managed to keep them up in the Premier League, and then when they finally didn't stay up, it was all his fault. And I'm like, he's done this with gum and baling wire and everything, and managed to not play like a super defensive way.
They don't play bad football.
They played nice, good, aggressive football in the grand scheme of things. So when he kind of threw himself on the sword and said, "It's my fault. Took some time off."
Everyone thought he was going to be done. He said he was done with Coach Allen. There's no way.
Yeah, and I was worried about that too, just because I just liked him so much.
There's no way.
But I couldn't believe it. So then when when the new owner came into Newcastle, I thought that was of all the player signings, I thought that was the smartest thing they did, was signing him to be
and
the
they
coach.
brought in an assistant coach as well. Yeah. So I think that was double a two-edged sword for them.
Well, and then again, English press being the English press is like, well, now that Newcastle has a new owner and a new direction, is Eddie Howe too small of a manager for them? And I'm like, okay. When he came in, they were in danger of relegating, and they signed some players. They absolutely did. But they signed smart players. They were very selective in it.
You're not getting any star players.
They filled.
Think about it like that.
Trippier was borderline star. Yeah. But I agree. I mean, it wasn't
He's a very good player.
They didn't sign
that season last
They
year.
didn't sign wow, they signed this huge.
They didn't sign Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
Think about it like that.
Exactly. Well, I agree with that. But they were selective. This is spots that are weak. This is spots we need to fill. They did that. They spent, I think it was $100 million in that January transfer window, and he fixed, and within 2 months, not this last season, the season before last, he had them on the right way. Which is, like I said, when I came into this, I was like, this is the team to take Tottenham's place.
Well, also, what do you think about Brighton this season? I think they had the most standout season last season in the Prem, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, you got it.
You finished. You finished 6th, right? I believe you finished 6th. 6th place, Europa League. But McAllister did get sold. A few of the other players get sold. Well, it looks like one of the big players might get sold.
That's what.
Well, so I think that might be the problem this season, just because.
Well,
but they always somehow they
have extra
players they got.
They have extra games because of their Europe schedule, which they didn't have last season, and then they're losing players. But unfortunately, that's kind of the way of the world. If you're not in that big 6.
Ajax has been heisted this season. Oh my goodness.
If you're not in the big 6 and then you succeed, there's always some players in there that are the top of you succeeding, and bigger teams are willing to give them more money and give you more money. But AC Milan, again, if they can sell one player for $70 million and then go buy 6 more players, in what world does that not make sense? Where City gets a lot of guilt for spending money. They've also sold off, until they sign, and the one defender is going to throw this way off. But at the moment, I think they've actually sold their play. They've brought more money in from sales this offseason than they have purchased. Because of course, at this moment, they've only bought one player and they've sold off quite a few. But they've done it the old, and again, probably Pep from Barcelona. They did it. Part of when Pep came in, and they had already started doing this. But they really put some money into the academy. So they've produced Foden and they've produced. Sancho with Man U that started at Man City's academy, and Foden and him came up together. Foden decided to stay and stick it out, and Sancho decided to go to Germany, and you know, he's already been considered, his signing to United is already down as a failure,
I mean,
even after one season.
I mean, you see what's called Arnold Palmer, right? Is that his name? Palmer?
Cole Palmer?
Cole Palmer.
Cole Palmer.
Cole Palmer. Apologies.
He's thinking golf right there for a second.
Cole Palmer. He's going to be a good player, I think. And the team captain of the England's U21s won the championship, or the Europa Championship. He's a Man City player.
Yeah.
And the goalkeeper, that didn't allow a single goal, he is a Man City player as well. You think about it, they're going to be very good in a few years. If not, they can also sell those players and get money out of them.
Right.
Um,
And that's where you have to be practical because, you know, as the players get to 21, 23, 25, whatever that range is, and if you don't have a spot for them to play, it's not fair. And I think that's, and I hadn't even thought about it until recently, that's